Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning to everyone here, and good morning to Aileen and Shukan. Um,
Morning.
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 So before I introduce our two speakers here, Aileen and Shukan, I'd like to give a warm welcome, and good morning to everyone who's watching this live. Hi, good morning. Um, first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jessica. You can call me Jess for short. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the newest intern at the Inner Link Psychological Wellness Center. Um, so today's YouTube live will be about career development and getting the most out of a career together with Aileen and Shukan. And yeah, I will be moderating today's talk. So just I hope everyone had a good sleep last night. I'm sure was a very eventful day and night last night.
A lot of them may still be asleep, right? If everyone stayed
Yeah.
up to watch the results.
I did. I did. I tried until the very end, but like nope, had to go to sleep. Otherwise, I wouldn't have like enough alertness for today's YouTube live, which is
Mm.
not great for my career development. Check. But regardless of like what happens, what's the outcome of yesterday's very eventful day, we still have to we are still in charge of our own development, our own career development, and our own lives. So yeah, career development is an ongoing and lifelong process of learning new skills, setting new goals regularly, and developing plans that help you get there. And it can involve things like self assessment of your own interests, your own abilities, what are your skill sets. People have different strengths and weaknesses, and then you matching like your strengths and weaknesses with like a career path that suits you, and not just a career path, but like what you do before you get there. But career development doesn't just stop once you find a job. A lot of people think that okay, the development stops like the where once you get a job, you get in the interview, and then you got 2 foot in, and then what next? So you want to look into things like improving those skills in order to advance into your chosen career, so that you can move to, like you say, higher job responsibilities, or seek out more opportunities, or maybe in that development you feel like you want to change paths even. So all that being said, career development can be a very important process in helping individuals succeed in their career path, and also making sure that before, during, and after that whole process, the individual is on the right path. Which is why I think it's crucial to seek for help when you need it. That's why we have Aileen and Shukan here with us today morning. Thank you for joining us today morning. Let me quickly introduce who Aileen and Shukan are. Aileen is a training counselor at the Inner Link, and she's about to get her license soon, her counselor
Yay! Well, no, don't jinx me just yet. I'm going for the interview for the
license.
license. Don't jinx me.
I think good luck, all the best. Everyone in the comments, please give well wishes to Aileen. And next we have Shukan from Recruiter Insights. So Recruiter Insights is a podcast. Is that correct? Is that right,
Yes,
Shukan?
it's a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a podcast that to create for a lot of job seekers out there to give some insights from a recruiter point of view.
That's very interesting. Thank you for doing something like Recruiter Insights. Yeah. Anyone watching, please follow Recruiter underscore Insights at on Instagram to know more, to get more of those insights. But right now we have like insider point of view today on this YouTube live together with Shukan and Eileen. Eileen, do you mind maybe introduce a bit of yourself? Maybe you can talk about your career development.
Let's not take up too long because we are on a
Yeah.
limited time. So I basically, as you know, I'm a trainee counselor now, and this is actually a career switch for me. I spent more or less like my first 10 to 11 years working in the banking industry. So I was a bank officer for that long, and I shifted a number of different departments from frontline to projects to back office. So I've seen quite a few different departments and how they work, and like either as well as from retail to investment side banking. So after that, I decided that I wanted to switch into something that I was a bit more comfortable with, that brought me more satisfaction in terms of like lifestyle and work and just, work satisfaction as overall. So I moved into counseling, which is why I'm here today.
Great to know that. Good to hear that. And what about you, Shukan? What brought you from where you started to Recruiter Insight?
Yeah, can. No problem. Actually, I graduated as an engineering graduate. So my first job actually is a production engineer in a palm oil mill. After working 1 year in palm oil mill, I feels like it not really my passionate whereabouts. So I plan to do a career change where I step into recruitment. Currently about 1 year of my recruitment career, everything is still okay. Then in the between, I also discover some insights that we can provide to a lot of job seekers out there, because that's usually what's the insights that we provide to other people. I feel like it might be something interesting that we can provide to other people. So we create this podcast with my colleagues together to share about different tips or different scenarios or have a different perspective for job seekers out there to have a better career planning.
I see. Thank you for sharing it, Shukan. Uh, wow, I think we just heard some very interesting perspectives just from our two speakers alone, from corporate, one from corporate to counseling and another one from engineering to recruiting industry. I guess this goes to say that career development is not always like a linear path, but we all want to get to achieve our goals, in one way or another. So now we can start get into like the questions and talk more about the career development. I would just like to also make a remark to the viewers that like we are open for Q&A for questions and answers. Please feel free to leave any questions in the live comment. Okay, so so the first question that maybe we can explore. So what is Irene Shuka, what do you think is the definition, like, or the process of career development? Like, what is the first step like someone should take, when they want to start thinking about like career development, or how early people start thinking about like, to take a first step towards career development? Irene and or Shukan, anything that you want to take
Mm,
this first?
okay, I'll go first. I think in terms of maybe let's not talk about technical side because I think that's more Shukan's expertise. But as yourself, you can start at any time. I think you get people who know what they want to be, what they want to do from a very young age. And then you get some who are basically, still in their mid 30s and they're still wondering, like, is this the right job for me? Is this where I want to go? I'm a very good example of that. Like, I didn't switch over until I was actually in my 30s. So it's never a linear thing. It's not something, there's no real start point. It's not like when you're 10, you got to start thinking about what you want to be when you grow up just because your school tells you what do you want to be when you grow up. Doesn't work that way. Um, it's always changing. I think environmental factors also take a place in it. So what I would say is the first step would probably be getting to know yourself better, getting to realize what your values are. And it sounds really simple, but when you sit down and really think about it, you find that certain things you value may not be things you value, but what people have told you should value. And I think that's a very important distinction, especially coming from the counseling side of things, because we run into people who come in with career, something like career dissonance and worries, and they're like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me. And when you ask them about like, why did you choose this career? Why did you choose this path? a lot of the times the answers you get are, well, when I was growing up, my family, my friends told me like this would be really good for me and all that. And there's not much exploration that's done. So the other thing would be to explore the different avenues of work that is available to you. Pick out what interests you. I think that's in the most important thing is like pick out what catches your eye and then get more information there. The most important thing at that point, because you're not experiencing it, is to actually get the information to learn more about the jobs that you are actually looking into or the career paths that you want to take. So I think for a starting point, that's probably where you'd start.
Yeah,
Thank you, Aileen.
I
Mm.
I think I agree with Eileen points because throughout my whole year of recruitment, I do realize people with very strong expertise in their either experiences who are doing very well in their jobs. They love what they are doing, even though some of the situations whereby we also think, wow, if I was the person step into this kind of situation, wouldn't enjoy doing that even with that much of the pay. But when we're able to find a person to work inside the company, they enjoy doing it. They enjoy dealing with that kind of problems. They enjoy the whole process of like building turn around something. Then they are not afraid of it. So we come across a lot of discussions with my colleagues. Then we do realize people with passion about their jobs, they will most likely be successful in their job as well. And I agree that sometimes we will get affected by a lot of environmental factors or economic factors, which we couldn't really go what we planned. But I do understand that a lot of people will plan their career in advance for like let's say 5 years, 10 years. But these kind of plans are very versatile. Like a lot of things we cannot go with our plan, so we need to able to make changes immediately and do what we need to do at that point of time. So I would say for career planning is more like what Jess said at the very beginning. It's a very long term planning. We cannot get whatever we set at. I think we every time we cannot get the result that we want, we only can plan at that point of time and go what we can go.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah, that's
Shukan.
that's that's really good. I think just to add on with what Shukan was saying, it's like one of the things that you also have to keep in mind in career planning is to keep yourself open to
Mm,
alternate options, because sometimes you may have a goal or an idea of what you want at the end, right? But to achieve that, you may actually have to take detours. So if in your mind you want to be in a certain job, but the position you're in now does not give you a straight line to that job, you're gonna have to be able to accept the fact that you're gonna have to detour, maybe take up other positions in other jobs, doing other things first before you get to do the thing that you want. And sometimes that's difficult, I've noticed, for people, because they're like, no, 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 I want to do this, this is what my whole goal is to be, so I can't detour from that, I'm going to waste time. But then you have to be able to realistically look at the position you're in and where you're standing right now. Will it actually allow you to reach that goal if you keep on this same path? Because a lot of times you're coming into counseling because you're actually having trouble already, you're having difficulty navigating, you're kind of like at a standstill, or you're not sure, and that's already indicative that there's a problem there already. So being
mm,
open to like alternatives, I think, is very important, so that you can actually kind of like, oh, okay, maybe it'll take me like a few years longer, but I'll get there, rather
mm.
than staying stuck in like one position and then never actually rising or moving forward.
Yeah, I guess that's true, especially most of the times when you are quite junior or like when you are about mid-level. Sometimes a lot of decisions whereby you want to switch departments or you'll be assigned to a new department. This kind of the choice are not done by yourself. It's not like something I can choose, but sometimes it's I get this kind of order. It's either I want to take it or maybe I need to find another job opportunity already.
Mm,
So but I would say most of the time when people gets different kind of the opportunities comes in, they will learn different skills And that kind of the skills might be a very surprising skills that you will be utilized in the future when you try to find different kind of the job opportunities, where you try to find different companies. So I like what Aileen said just now, be really open to what you have at the moment, learn from there, and also develops what you can do and get a better career planning or get a surprising career planning like that.
What I'm hearing a lot is I like what Eileen said earlier, that like, you know, it's important to get to know yourself better first, meaning like what are your values versus what other people tell you should value, and which I think ties in very well to what Shukan said, like, you know, knowing yourself better makes it a lot easier for you to be versatile, adaptable, and being open to alternatives. Because if, let's say, career development paths diverge, yeah, thank you for sharing those insights with us. Um, so following that, like, so the next thing that, you know, having said all that, it makes me think about, like, you know, wanting to ask you both, like, what do you think? Um, there's this idea that, you know, there's a specific point in someone's life that, you know, you start thinking about or start developing a career, but I don't. Do you think there is like a set point in life? Is there such a thing? Whether, like, you know, is it too early or when is it too late to start thinking about career development? So, or why when do we, you know, start thinking about career development, and why is it important to start thinking about it at like this point? Is there such a thing as this point of time, like say in your early 20s is too early, or in your teenage age is too early? Is there such a thing, too early or too late?
Shukan, do you want to go first?
I think I can go first. Okay. So, I would say most of the time we will encourage people, if let's say you don't like where you are at the moment, you plan it as earlier as possible. The reason why we say that is because we do observe when people get higher level or get older, the more responsibilities they will get, not only from their job perspective, but also from their family perspective. So when this kind of the responsibility comes, it is hard to let it go, especially from for yourself. So at that point of time, you can only take it lah to further develop where you are, then try to get a little bit higher to get more money, so you can be responsible for your family or for people who rely on you. So but if let's say responsibility are not that important as well, it's not a very huge thing to you. But the higher you are, the higher pay you can get as well. Then when you change another new job, most likely you will get a junior kind of the pay. At that point of time, are you willing to take a pay cut to do this kind of career change? If yes, actually, uh, a lot of factors will come through, like either HR point of view or recruiter point of view. It's like, why do you want to make this kind of change at this point of time? So it might be hard to. I do understand people like, because I want to step into another industry. I love the industry, but do you have that kind of experience, or do you have that kind of like knowledge to step into a new industry or not? Then at that point of time, you need a lot of points, or you need a lot of reasons to persuade the people to hire you to join in a new industry, especially you are the mid-level person. Because in a HR perspective or in a hiring manager perspective, we will also take either the the difficulty to manage a person into the accountability when we do kind of like a hiring process or screening process. I do observe that people can switch their jobs in mid-career, but I would say it's extremely hard, especially when you are become a senior exec or mid-level, then you want to suddenly drop down to a junior exec level type of jobs. It might be hard for a person. Then so we always encourage, if you want to change to a completely new different functions or completely new different industry, you should take it as early as possible. But if you want to change in your mid-career, you need to observe what kind of the transferable skills you have to able to persuade the hiring manager or HR to say, hey, I have this kind of knowledge, I have this kind of transferable skills, so I might be valuable to this kind of jobs, like that. So this is completely from a recruitment point of view. So I guess I will leave more like a counseling point of view to Aileen.
I hear
Um, yeah, go on.
I hear if I'm Shukan, I hear you say so the earlier someone starts thinking about starting the earlier someone starts developing their career, then it's more beneficial in case like because there's more time to gain more experience in case like
Yes.
people want to pursue a career change in the middle,
Mm.
like in later years. All right, so Eileen, from a counselor's perspective, like what do you think of that?
Okay, so I feel like in a counselor's point of view, it's not much different because this is more of a practical aspect of your life. So I do agree that a lot of times if it's earlier, it's better, mainly because you have less to lose, right? But at the same time, it's also understandable that transferring when you are younger also has its own obstacles because you do not have those marketable skills that Shukan was talking about. You haven't had the years of experience to market yourself and say, I've learned this, I've been through this department, I've got all this knowledge and experience that I can give to this new position. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing where, depending on what you're doing and what they are looking for, how you market yourself, that's really, really important. I think we all know the importance of marketing, like, depending on like what brands you buy to eat or places you go to stay and stuff like that, right? Like everybody has been to Japan, I'm sure, because it's been marketed as like a really great tourist place, right?
Yes.
So marketing is really big. And I do agree with Shukan that you must know. That's the thing, you must know your value. That's one of the things, like when you come into counseling for career counseling, we do talk about that, like what can you do, what do you want to do, and then we talk about the skills that you have. What are your practical skills, what are your soft skills? A lot of times, one of the things is when people ask, okay, what skills do you have, what can you give me, and you think about it in a very sort of like, it's like a very box like thing, like I only have these applicable skills to bring over, and then it's like they kind of disregard the soft skills you learn, the communication skills. This is so important, right? Like the skill to just write and communicate well in an email, to get your
Yeah.
point across without being offensive, or with just having the right grammar so the messages don't get wrong. Being able to communicate with your bosses, being able to liaise with other people. There's so many soft skills, things that you don't think are important, that really run the whole process, which is a lot more important than technical skills.
Yes.
So I think Shukan can understand in terms of like coming from an engineering background and moving into recruitment. They look for different things.
Mm.
I studied law as my first degree, then I went into banking, then I went into counseling,
Mm.
and the things that I picked up from there that I brought over was things like being able to read nuances, to learn to read between the lines, to pick up ambiguous wording, actually sitting down to be able to communicate, learning to keep an open mind, being non-judgmental. All these things I learned through this process. And these are things I think which serve much better as a takeover, as a carryover in career switches, than things like, oh, I learned how to, like, I know like the legalities of this
Mm.
situation as applicable to this country, or I know
Mm.
like how long it takes you to bank a check and things like that. So hard skills, soft skills, and
Mm.
time does make a big difference. As from personal perspective, yes, it's much more difficult to do it mid level, especially like me when I did it in my 30s. There's a lot of things I had to think about because,
Mm.
you're grown, you have commitments, as you mentioned.
Mm.
I'm not married, but I do have other personal commitments. But at the same time, I
Mm.
have the privilege, because I don't have a family to commit to. I
Mm.
can actually decide for myself, okay, I want to change.
Mm.
This is something other people will have to think about, especially if they're coming from a one income family. If
Mm.
they are the breadwinners, they're going to think, can I actually afford to do this? You know, is it going
Mm.
to work in the long term? And the other thing would be like, how supportive, what is the support you can get? I think a lot of people
Mm.
forget that, it's not just you when you decide to do this, but your family members are going, oh my God, why did you do that? You gave us such a good job and all that, without realizing you could have
Yeah.
burned out. In 2, 3 years' time, maybe I will see you in counseling for depression or stress or anxiety because of your
Mm.
job.
Mhm.
It's not impossible. So it's really
It's not
important.
impossible. Yes.
It's not impossible.
The
So it's,
counselor's
it's
TV.
yeah.
I'll see you in the counseling room for depression for like 10 years.
So yeah, so you can continue, and I think you mentioned this earlier. It's an ongoing process. Career planning is an ongoing process. You could start off really great, high point, and then you're going to realize as you go on, maybe this is not for me because it's wearing me down. I'm not,
Mhm.
I can't work like this. When you wake up
Yes.
in the morning and you really just want to roll over and go back into bed, right? I'm not talking about like laziness or whatever. I'm talking about seriously, just kind of like I would rather lie here and never get up, then
Mhm.
something is really not right. And you'd have to look into it. If you can't do a career switch, you'd have to explore what can you do with your career plan to make it more palatable to you. Sometimes you don't get the privilege of doing that switch, so we have to look into more softer alternatives like changing position within the company, things
Mhm.
like that, trying out taking on new job roles.
Mhm.
Even that will help. So yeah, so counselor's perspective.
Thank you for both insights, Shukan and Aileen, from the recruiter side and the counselor side. I think this makes me feel like it's also important to talk about to address then, because I'm looking at the comments box, the chat box, and a viewer was asking, should we choose a job we love, or should we choose a job that we are good at? So versus what we know how to do, or versus what we love. And I think this is a question that comes out for a lot of people at either points of the career, whether it's at the start of the career development, at the start of their career life, or when doing mid-level changes or so. Uh, we've all been there. It sounds like from the experiences that both of you had shared, like doing the career change or so, maybe you both have encountered the same questions that Cindy had also, whether you should choose a job that you love, or whether you're good at that, you have skill sets in. What do the both of you think?
Mm.
And thank you, Cindy, for the question. Yeah.
It's a good question, and I think it comes up a lot. And I'm sorry, like this is gonna sound very stereotypical, a bit judgy. Forgive me, but Western media has displayed a lot of like do your thing, do what you love, find yourself. I agree, find yourself, but a lot of times jobs are like, oh, find your passion, and that's not always an option. That's not always an option for everyone because sometimes the thing you're passionate about is very niche. There's not a lot of space for a lot of people. Sometimes what you love is not what you're good at. So again, you may end up trying to go into something that's not going to give you the returns that you hope for, right? Um, I think a lot of times what you love, for some people it works out. You do what you love, and then you get a job that you're good at, and then that's fine, and you succeed, or you're happy where you are. Okay, because you can't define success, I'm sorry, but you're happy where you are doing what you love and you're good at it. But sometimes you love something, and then when you try to make it into a job, you're going to realize something like, oh, it's become a chore, and then you lose the love for it, and you just don't want to do it anymore. And I've run into clients who are like this. They take a passion, they're good at it, they take a passion, they go into the market for it, get a job in it. 2 years down the line, right, they're coming into session going, you know what, I'm burnout, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't love it anymore. I forgot why I love this thing. I don't want to do, I don't even want to look at it. So it really depends on the person, their expectation, and I think how they can cope. It's their personality. How can you cope with doing something you love as a job? Because when you're doing it as something you love, say baking, you choose your time, right? Today I want to bake this, I'm going to do this, I want to give to people or whatever. But if I don't want to do it tomorrow, I'm not going to do it. When it becomes your job, right, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't get a choice anymore. People have paid you money. You have to do it. You can't just call up your customer and go, I'm feeling a bit lazy today, so I'm not going to like bake your cake. I'm afraid you have to find someone else. Doesn't work. So I think you really, they would have to decide whether they can cope with the idea that what they do for fun is going to be something that they're going to do as a responsibility to other people now. So they're not just answering to themselves; they have to answer to other people. And then the answer is no, then it may not be the wisest idea lah. Which comes back to knowing yourself, also handling your expectations, also doing what you're good at depends on like what you're going to do with it, right? So I think it's more of like knowing what you want to do, what the market is like, and how well you think you can apply it
Mm.
before you go into it.
Mm.
What about you,
Yeah.
Shukan?
I like the idea because that is very much similar to one of the, I think it's a Japanese idea called Ichigai. So I forgot what exactly it means, to be honest, but if I'm not mistaken, it is more about
Okay.
you need for find a jobs that you can pay you, they're very important, can bring you, you are happy about it, you can you can consistently grow, if I'm not mistaken. Then you can give back to the society to make you feel the sense of achievement. So I like the idea where you pointed out looking for what's the market want. That is really important because we did come across one of the discussion is about talking about the job you like, similar to that. So if let's say I want to become a singer today, is not the very high demand in Malaysia at the moment, sadly, and it is very, I would say it is very hard to get people to get to know you if you want to become a singer, because that's if you get more people to know you, you started to earn more. That's a very good cycle. But if you don't, then you are stuck in that. For you are not sure when you will get famous at that point of time. So should I choose a job we love or should we choose a job that we are good at? Actually, I would say it comes hands in hand, because sometimes where the job you are good at or you will love it, or the job you love, you will be good at it. So I would like to add on another perspective is like find a job that you can constantly learn, you can experience a lot of new things to keep you alive. Then because the jobs that keep you alive sometimes actually is the demand from your managers, then that's the skills you will learn sometimes is very applicable to others people, others market out there or other companies out there, because that's the kind of the skills they are looking for as well, because you are solving the in-house company problems. You are able to apply this kind of like problem solving experience or problem solving techniques to other companies when they want to solve other companies problems. I would say after working 1 year in recruitment, I changed the job perspective a little bit. Before that, I also have this kind of like concerns of me. Should I choose a job that I'm good at, or should I choose a job that I love? After working at 1 year, I would say try to choose a job that market demands. If let's say money is your main priority,
Yeah.
or you want job security is your main priority, choose a job that market demands. That will definitely bring you job security and money and also achievement. But if you are not, if you don't want to limit yourself on money only or like status only, you also want to get a sense of achievements, or you also want to get the happiness working, the happiness of working. You should try to find a job that you love also, and also you are good at, because that can bring you a sense of achievement and that could bring you happiness. And sometimes happiness, the job you love, might not be necessary to the job you are doing, but the people around you, your colleague, your manager, they can bring you the happiness in working as well. So I would say from when I was uni student, I also scared that, oh, if I don't choose a job that I love at the moment, I won't like this job forever. I would say it's not necessarily in that case, because the people around you and the skills that you learn and the manager supporting you, eventually you will kind of like this job, but not that 100%. But still better than people who don't like their job. and you will not get burned out so frequent. Yeah. So and you have sometimes to maybe see a counselor to do a to do a therapy to release up all your stress. Then you can con you can get alive again to continue working in your job. You can get your interest alive. Then you will still passionate about your jobs. So we always think about, oh, if I what if I get burnout? What if I hate my jobs? That's the time you need to seek a career coach, a career counselors to understand more about yourself and understand what you want to change. Is it a short-term things like because I handle projects, then I really get stressed out a lot for my projects. Then do I really hate my jobs? It's a question marks for you. That's some things you need to find out by yourself. Maybe you hate your jobs already, or you just get stressed out by that projects. Then after that projects, you can still going on. You still love this kind of job. You still love your team. Then I would say you need to find out by yourself lah, because that's the questions we always get from our candidate as well. Then we cannot take we always can point out different scenario for them to let them think about it. Yeah. So my advice for this question will be find a jobs that can keep you learning new things. Then you will get more alive in your job. Eventually the job will be the job where you love and where you are good at.
All right, thank you, Aileen and Shukan. And also thank you to Cindy. Thank you to Cindy. Such a simple question, like should we choose a job we love or we're good at, but can spark such a very meaningful conversation. What I'm hearing from both Aileen and Shukan is, finding meaning and purpose. Maybe the answer to the question is like finding meaning and purpose in what you do, your values, is very important, and when you're deciding whether you should do something you love or you're good at, or ideally strike a balance to find both. Having said that, just want to also put in a plug in for the inner link. So at the inner link we have, other than counseling, we also have a career assessment sessions to do career assessment. Like if you're unsure, whether you're at a point you're unsure whether you should do something you love or stay for this job, or you're trying to figure out like what is it that you love, you're trying to figure out, and you want someone to not hold your hand but maybe guide you gently to get there. Please follow us on Instagram at the inner link, and then there's a link in the bio, the link tree, and then you can go in and look at how you can get a career assessment at the inner link. All right. Let's go to the next question. It's 11:45 a.m. now. For people still viewing, thank you so much for staying with us. And just want to remind again that you can continue to leave more questions for the Q&A in the comments box. So, Aileen and Shukan, maybe we can talk next about what are the factors. What do you think are factors that can influence a person's career development? What are the factors that you see from a counselor's perspective, like what's important, and maybe from a recruiter's perspective, it's a bit different?
Okay, when we talk about factors, I think one of the internal factors, external factors, right? There are two. Internal factors would be like your values. What's your personality type? What is your interest? A lot of times this influences how you view the job you're doing, or views the direction in which you want to work as, because of your priorities, right? You know how you talk about the career counseling that we do. So we run assessments like the MBTI, which is like the Myers-Briggs test, or RIASEC, which is like the Holland's test. These are personality tests, which allows us a bit more insight into like your type of personality, whether you are a kind of person who deals better with a certain type of occupation. So like realistic. So is it more hands-on, or do you do more well in like the more artistic kind, or do you do better in jobs which deal more with instincts, that kind of thing? And that helps yourself and us to kind of narrow down certain fields. So because it's like if you are more artistically inclined, and I'm saying this from personal experience, if you are more artistically inclined, you do better with things like counseling, people skills, with art, but you do very, very badly with like hard sciences, and you don't do well with like math. Like engineering for me was, I had a friend who was doing engineering. She showed me what she was doing. I was just like, I don't understand. I don't understand anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, just spare me, right? At the same time, when she looked at my law papers, she was just kind of like, I don't even know how you do this. Like, I feel like I want to die when I look at the papers.
Same.
Yeah, so it does it's quite important to know. So that's what the assessments does, and then we also do things like value searches. So we talk about what you value. Do you are your priorities home, family, peace, or is it money? Is it money? Is it fame? And that also kind of links back to what you want to do, because if you are a type who values family, right, then you're going to want a job where you have a better balance. It's not so important for you to have a lot of money. You just need enough to survive, but you want to have one where you can spend time with your family. But if you're the type to prioritize money first, then you're going to want a job that's probably going to take you away from your family a lot, but that's going to earn you faster, more money, in a shorter time range. I think Shukan would know more about this kind of thing in terms of like the job market and all that, and like what jobs do this kind of thing. But in terms of counseling, these are the aspects that we look at, like where are your priorities, how do they match with your goals, and then the assessments that we do help us to kind of narrow down the field of jobs or occupations that you could look at, so then you're not left kind of like drowning in like the 10,000 jobs on the market or 10 million jobs on the market. And you also have to remember, uh, where your interest lies, so that you don't suddenly go like, oh, I want to be like top salesman, but you cannot talk to people, or you have social anxiety, right? So this kind of thing will just stop you flat until you learn how to handle it. And sometimes it's very, very tough. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's tough lah. Then it depends on how much you want to work on it. So I mean, Jess, if you don't mind bringing it up, I think one of the things internally we were talking as well is like neurodivergency, right? And I remember you mentioned before that you also had a tough time because you didn't know you had ADHD,
Yeah.
but you've been having it all this time, right? And then it was quite tough for you.
Yes. Uh. Okay. I guess I can share a little bit about myself also. Yeah. I was in the. I came from before joining the Innerling and going into like exploring the field of psychology. I came from an events and marketing background, and the working hours and the workload was long, very challenging, very fun, very stimulating, but very long working hours and also stress. And at that time, at point, I didn't know I was neurodivergent, that I had ADHD until the age of 27. And I was wondering, I was always wondering, why am I burning out so fast? Why can my coworkers, pull that 10-hour work thing, but like for me at like the 6-8 hour points, I'm like, oh, boldly. That kind of, even though I enjoyed what I was doing so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh I just now when you mentioned engineering also, I saw Shukan's face at the corner. For
Hurt me.
anyone who's joining this YouTube live late or halfway, let me reintroduce our speakers again to give context to any viewers who join us late or halfway. Hi, welcome to the Innerlinks YouTube live today on topic on career development. Shukan is from the Recruiters Insights, which is a podcast talking about giving insights into the employment recruitment industry for the benefit of both job seekers and also the employer side. So you can go look recruiter underscore insights on Instagram and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Is that right, Shukan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
next.
And also, Shukan is also a volunteer at the Inner Link. And we have Aileen, who is a trainee counselor, about to be a fully licensed counselor. Yeah. So we are talking about career development, and we are getting insights from like both the counselor and mental health perspective, and also from the recruiters perspective. Striking a balance here, isn't that great? That's the theme of what we're talking about here today. I've been hearing a lot of strike the balance, striking the
Yeah.
balance.
True, true,
Yeah.
true. Thanks for sharing, Jess. Like I think that's one of the things when we talk about when I was talking about internal factors is that you have to know that's where it becomes important to know yourself.
Mm.
If you're noticing certain things about yourself that if you notice certain things about yourself that you feel is different, it's not to say that it's wrong. It just could be that's your limit. It could be something else that's bothering you. Like you mentioned, you didn't know you were ADHD, right? So some people may not feel comfortable checking that out. They, no one wants to go and like stick a label on themselves, even though it could be helpful if
Yeah.
they need the medication. But yeah, so then you'd have to be aware of your limitations and work towards that. So you can't just ignore it and then pretend like I'm gonna work through it anyway. So like if you are a type of person who starts to run down after 6 hours, you can't go and tell yourself like, you know what, everyone else is doing it, I can do 12 hours. You're gonna drop very fast. And it's not gonna be good for you either. And that's actually just going to ruin your career development as well, because then it's like a snowball thing where you don't perform and then you're tired, you don't perform again, you make mistakes, and then you're going to get a bad rating, and then just everything just goes down. So keeping in mind your own limitations is also another factor. Externally, I think most people are aware of external factors: education, financial ability, family commitments, or just external commitments elsewhere, insurance, whatever you have to pay. Family makeup also makes a big chunk of it. You could be coming from a single income family. You could be coming from a single parent family. You could be one of those who actually had to work from a very young age. So a lot of your opportunities depend on your own situation. We can't really like cover everything. And one of the main things I think, especially for us in Malaysia, is what Shukan will probably be able to expand on more than me, is the actual job market that we have available. Because we have a very sort of typical Asian strong science kind of like
Yes.
doctor engineer, what was it, doctor engineer banker,
Lawyer.
yeah, doctor
Doctor,
engineer
engineer, lawyer.
lawyer, career
Yes.
minded kind of culture, right, that we're
Yes.
not
Yes.
really.
Exactly.
Yeah, so our art side is actually not very well developed either. So when you get people who, I want to be a singer, I want to be an actor, I want to be an entertainer and stuff like that, it's very, very tough. We don't have the opportunities for them. We don't have the support for them
Mhm.
the way other countries do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I can add on 1 or 2 points if I'm not mistaken. I
I'm sure
like
there's
one of
more.
the thing. I maybe when I talk more, then I understand. I will talk more about it. I like to add on one of the very important points that we found when we talk to different candidates. The Most of the time we will ask, "What's the reasons you leave this company? What's the reasons you change job?" But what's the reason you are looking out lah? Most of the time we will heard some from the people is, "I feel burnout." The very first thing, I feel burnout. I cannot take it anymore. The whole situation, I cannot manage it anymore. So that's why they are looking out. That is, let's say you are still healthy, you are aware of you cannot take it anymore. So to whoever do not understand themselves that they cannot take it anymore, they will still suffering. So that will cause a lot of mental illness. So which is really not bad, and especially it will force into the bad cycle. What Eileen talked about just now, you won't perform really well, then you get bad results, then you'll be more even worried about that, then you perform really bad again. So always know yourself to what you are capable of. That is really important. That is very important for internal perspective, and also for the another perspective is I would always say find a job that suit your personality. I agree to what Eileen said just now. It's really important to find a job what you are really good at. One of the example I will give is a lot of people are promoting studying IT. IT is a way. IT is a lot of IT. You can earn a lot of money. Very career minded. Very minded in Malaysia again. Now the trend switch from engineering lawyer to become IT now. I would say definitely. I agree there's a huge demand now, but I would say it will probably will be back to the similar situation whereby a lot of people saying, "Oh, engineering is so good. Let's study engineers together." Now engineers are oversupplying.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I would say that's true.
I think four out
Then
of my friends are engineers
yes,
or study
exactly.
engineering. They're not doing engineering, but they studied engineering.
Same as me. I would say same as me. Uh, for IT, you still need to know are you really capable of IT or not in the
Mm.
industry, because the way IT people think is really different from the way that us people think, and it's quite different from the way engineering people thought also. So by doing that, because if let's say you don't really an IT person and you took an IT degree and you want to do IT job, then you realize you are not really capable of doing that, or you are not really actually like to do that. Whereby there are other people out there, they like to do IT. IT is their passions, then they can develop a lot of skill faster than you. Are you can do you and do you are you compatible to them? Not really. Are you competitive enough to them to get a higher pay or to get a higher job? Not really. So go down to the very, very foundations. You will still need to think about who you really are, what you are really suitable, or what kind of the jobs you like. Then from there, you can develop your own career that you like to do. You can compete with other people. You can perform better to other people, and you can get a very high job, a high title, high pay, and you can get a sense of achievement from there as well. So that is like the internal factors that I want to add on from any point of view. From external factors, I do agree sometimes we need to think a little bit ahead for your career planning. That what we mentioned previously. Maybe we want to find a very good company to join. I want to find a MNC to join. Then after that, I can switch from this company to that company. I can climb a little bit higher. But most of the times, plans that not come into your way. So and also sometimes you will get affected by a lot of other factors, like let's say family, like let's say current job market, like let's say economic. It will affect all of your career development as well, especially like let's say pandemic. Like a lot of people were restricted, are looking for job security. They don't want to make a career change. They don't want to make a career development for that point of time, because a lot of people are looking for job security and there's not much hirings out there. So these kind of external factors do influence your career developments, and sometimes you are not in control of that. You need to deal with it. Then how you deal with this kind of the external developments is you need to believe yourself. What's the jobs you are doing now? Is it really will bring you to another place? So I guess actually this kind of external will combine with your internals again, because the internals will somehow bring you to other places whereby external is just fixed, but internal is very versatile for to apply to different companies or different positions. Yeah.
Right. I think listening to you, Shukran, it reminded me of something that I didn't mention, which was basically to be very aware of
Mhm.
your own situation, to be very realistic about it. I'm not
Yes.
knocking the idealism. It's good to have a goal, it's
Mhm.
good to have a target to work towards. But I think a lot of people get lost in the I want to be successful, I want to do this, I want to achieve all this. And then they forget that along
Mhm.
the way, um, how do you do it realistically? Because you're not just going to step into a job and then get promoted in 5 years, get another
Mhm.
promotion in another 2 years. Those things are like, it may happen, but it happens
Yeah.
out of like one in 10,000 employees. You
Yes,
know, if it
exactly.
would, if it was so common, it wouldn't be
Mm.
so special. Which
Yes,
means that
exactly.
you're actually going to spend 10, 20 years working your way up to maybe halfway of your goal, unless
Mhm.
you're really one of those exceptional ones who are really going to stand out.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
let's be fair, right? it's not really that easy to stand out.
It's not really easy. You need to pay quite a lot of
Mm,
things that you are not aware of sometimes.
yeah.
Like what you said just now, time with family,
Mm,
your own time. Are you willing to give that kind of things to get in return to a potential promotions? You need to you need to figure out yourself, is it
yeah.
really worth to do it or not for
Yeah.
yourself? I would say it might happen, but you need to take the risk to do so.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's also a lot of health factors as well, because you do a lot of
Yeah.
late nights, early mornings, no sleep. I think in certain
Yes.
positions it's a lot of traveling, so it does
Yes.
take a toll on the body, and you'll find that at certain points it's just sort of like, is it a price you're willing to pay? But
Mhm.
at that point it's probably a bit too late because you've already paid it.
Some
Yes,
people enjoy
exactly.
that. There are
Yeah, so
people who
Yeah.
enjoy it.
if you enjoy it, like, that's fine, because and like I mentioned, like, no, most likely the ones who enjoy it are the ones who excel in it. They're the
Yes.
success stories you see, they're the people who are really willing to put like 20 hours in a day on the job and no sleep, just like run on adrenaline.
Yeah.
But how many people can do that? Everybody looks at, like, you look at your boss, you go like, wow, he's earning, like, I don't know, he's earning seven figures, he's got car, he travels, he gets holiday, he's got secretary, does all his work, he doesn't do anything, he comes in late and then he goes off early, that kind of thing. But to get there, right, what did he do? How much work, how much effort went to it? Can you put in that same work and effort? I've had clients come in who tried and they burned themselves out within the year. So so it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Which is why I just came back to stress the point. Like, you have to be very realistic about your own abilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, can I say that the biggest takeaway from this is that one of the biggest factors that may influence career development is, thinking about, again, back to, what are your values, internal and external factors, and what you're willing to do, and what
Mm,
kind of, whether you have the privilege of, like, not having to think about, like, economic factors, or staying, or being able to stay up for 20 hours because you
right.
don't have, like, a family commitment to take care to.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because it's very different for a person who's like, I want to, who want to do the 20 hours, but you've got maybe an infirm mother at home that you have to take care of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have no siblings, and your dad is also working at the same time. So there's nobody home, which means
Yeah.
that then you have to balance now. Okay, I have to be at home, or can we afford to get a nurse? If you get a nurse, can you trust them not to abuse your mother? To, well,
Mm.
not abuse her, but can you trust them to take care adequately?
Mm.
So you
Mm.
worry, right? And then you're not home. Are you willing to do that? Okay, if
Mm.
you're willing to do that, then okay lah, that's fine, right?
Mm. Yeah.
But if you're not willing to do that, you can't.
So I guess actually there's one point we may mention about, is like, we do agree sometimes people with a higher title they are successful, but
Mm,
sometimes people without a real high title doesn't mean they are not successful. Sometimes there are a lot of like
mm.
external factors that hold them back to make a better, not better, to make a that kind of decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things which I actually read recently, I found very, very, very true, is the definition of success in culture, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is the definition of success? Is the definition of success for you the same as for me?
Mm.
If someone's definition of success is to have a job where I can live comfortably, just enough so that I can save a little bit for my retirement, it's not the
Mm.
same as someone whose definition of success is, I have to have a car, I have to have a house, I have to be able to take 3 holidays a year overseas. It's very, very
Mm.
different. So I think when we talk about people being successful, it
Mm.
gives a very wrong idea, because they're
Mm.
always like, oh, success story, right? And success
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
stories are always people who have achieved like really high levels, like
Mm.
pinnacle. They can do this and that. They have achieved all this. They've got so much accolades to their name. They've won this. They've done this. They've done huge things. And I'm not belittling them. It's great. And, it is a success. But because we do that, right, we kind of like we've kind of like put that on a pedestal. when you talk about someone being successful, if your cousin comes and then, oh, I found a job and I can pay for my own house and all that, so my parents don't have to pay. I think that's a success as well. If that was his goal, like maybe his parents were old already, right? He wants to be able to have a job to be able to support them, so they don't have to work anymore, right? And they can kind of like live easy in retirement. For him, that's like his end goal. That's all he needs for his life. Then that's his success, right? It's not like he wants to be awarded like Nobel Prize or whatever. So it doesn't mean that they're not successful just because they don't get like the big prizes, which is why I feel like maybe when we talk about being successful, it kind of puts a different kind of pressure.
Mhm.
So different definitions of success can be very objective. Also, can mean different people, different individuals would have different factors that will influence their career development.
Mm.
All right. Thank you, Aileen and Shukan. We took this question at 11:45. It's 12:08 now. So interesting to talk about.
We talk too much.
Yeah.
But it is a important topic to talk about. I'm sure a lot of people from what we've heard from you, Aileen, like your clientele that comes to you for counseling, I'm sure this is a very commonly talked about topic. So we have some questions in the chat box, and really interesting questions. But before that, just maybe we can do one more question before we go on to the Q&A, because I think this is a good thing that we can address also. Like, how can organizations help their employees with career development? So maybe Shuka can give some insights, like from the recruiter side, like what can organizations provide to help like their employees with their career development?
I would say this is a very tricky question because sometimes we don't see much of the companies that will provide this kind of good trainings as well. But for good companies that will provide this kind of trainings, they will definitely give you a very good onboarding sessions to let you know about the whole company, the whole function of the jobs, and also your managers. A good organization sometimes will give you different chances to explore different departments to make you to be more well-rounded when you want to step out to be a head of departments or managers. That's what we observe so far. Then this is kind of like the trainings that some of the good companies will provide from a junior level to a very senior level. Like I met one I think it's a QC lab manager from eye drop manufacturing company, American eye drop manufacturing company. She was a production manager, then switched to QC lab manager. Is because her company required her to do that in order to step up to a head of department. So this kind of exposure that will help the employees to do a lot better in their career development. So I would say trainings is the most important things for organizations to do to help their employees to with their career development, and also succession planning that will help a lot for the organizations to help their employees to career development as well. And sometimes the organization will stuck into a dilemma. It's like, oh, although I helped to train my employees, but they changed to another companies, then all my effort was gone. This is quite I would say yes, there are situations like that, but if let's say your company sometimes your company is attractive enough to retain the talents will stay. Yeah. But then that will comes with different trainings, different benefits, different succession plannings. The employees feels, oh, I can grow in my company, so that's why I don't need to look up to other companies. I have a lot of new things I can do in order to grow myself in my company. So that's why a lot of big companies out there, they can retain their talents really well because they have a really clear planning for their talents. Then I think by doing that, not only to help the employees to do their developments, the whole company will have a better development as well. So that's why a lot of like MNC they will focus a lot on trainings and succession plannings. How about Eileen side?
I think for me, what I think would help is one of the good examples, or at least it used to be, I don't know if it is now, not very up to date, would have been the Google Workspace. I don't know if
Mhm,
you all remember, but when Google first opened its offices, they were talking about how they have recreational areas for the crew to take a break. It's not just like a break room, but they actually put like beds, and it was a very fun place. So there was a place
mhm,
for the staff to actually like go and just like really just do R&R, like proper R&R, rather than actually just like sitting in a room and like staring at the wall kind of thing. So it was really like they made it so that if you're gonna have fun, really have fun. And it served to give a very kind of like open, welcoming environment for the staff, where they can actually just, where they felt like the company really appreciated the fact that, hey, we are people too, and we also need a break. And because of the nature of the job, sometimes it's not convenient to go home. You've given us a space here where we can also kind of recalibrate ourselves. And I think that's important for organizations, which is not the space, but to make sure that the employees realize that the organizations actually still see them as people.
yes,
Because
I
the
agree.
one of the things nowadays in corporate culture especially is that you are not indispensable. If you go, someone's going to take over.
Mhm,
And that's a lot of stress for someone who, maybe if they're not well or they need to take long-term leave for a health issue, they're going to be like, am I
mhm,
still going to have a job when I come back? That's a big problem. And
mhm,
it's one of those things. And also, like, in relation to counseling, sometimes they're like, can I come and see you, but like, do I have to disclose? Will I lose my job if they know I'm coming for counseling?
mhm,
If I
Mm.
have depression, will they hire me? Do I have to tell
mhm,
my interviewer that I have depression? Or if I'm having, like, if I got anxiety and anything, do I have to disclose? Am I going to lose my job? Will they fire me? Am I going to lose promotions? And so all the worry comes out, like, if the moment, it's like the thought is, if I'm defective in that sense, if I have a flaw, is this company going to drop me? And this comes from, I feel like this comes from the sense that they feel like this company doesn't see them as people. You're just you're just there to do that job. If you can't function, they're gonna take you, throw you away, put a better functioning piece in. You know. So that's one of the things I think, that if it could help their career development, they would feel like safer to perform or to disclose if they knew that the company would appreciate them. I think that's one of the main things. The other thing I think to help in career development would be maybe to have regular kind of scheduled counseling sessions, just to monitor progress of your staff, so that you can identify if your staff is burning out, maybe because they were doing big projects or they were going through an intensive time. I don't know if you guys remember, um, a few years ago, one of the banks had a big issue with like the checking machines, and a lot of the checks didn't get cashed, right? And the internal departments of the banks were seriously just flooded. They had to pull staff in from everywhere to help clear things, and like to sort out, to meet customers. And we're not just talking about face to face, like on the ground retail customers. We're talking about huge companies who have banked in company checks, wages, stuff like that. And all these things were not done, and it was like a good 1 month, 2 months to sort out all these things. So when you're doing all this, right, the staff who have to, especially who have to handle this, the bank staff who had to see the customers who are coming in to scream at them. I think it's very important to like check on their mental health, and like to make sure that they're okay and all that, so that rather than like after all this happens, they're like, oh, I just got to go back to work, like nobody cares, and then they like, I want to quit. It's like, okay, they take care of me, so I can stay here, I can continue developing here. So it's not a direct kind of like career development to let you rise, but it's also to maintain the the staffing, to make sure that they stay and develop within your company. because the lifeblood of a company is your staff, it's your
Mm.
employees. So yeah, I think like knowing your mental health to be able to check, so that like if the counselor gives a reading on like your employee maybe seems to be geared better to maybe your this other department as well, then HR has a better idea of like, oh, if we need staff here, these are the people we can shuffle around, rather than just plucking. Because I've had experiences where HR just takes a person and puts them into a position, and they
Oh
know
no.
absolutely zero. They have no skill, they have no
Mm.
knowledge, and then the team who have to work with them is struggling to teach this new person and cover the work at the same time. So then rather
Yeah.
than helping to ease the burden, right, you up the stress levels.
I think that can also tie, like, can link to what Shukan said earlier about the importance of like organizations to have a roadmap for
Yeah.
employees coming in, the
Yeah.
roadmap onboarding. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
I like the point whereby Eileen talked about the employee will like to be treated as a human, not just a tool of the company. That's what we heard a lot to get appreciated lah. I think that's what people after this pandemic people are looking forward for their next opportunity as well.
You'd be surprised, a lot of people stay in like very terrible jobs, very small companies, just because their bosses treat them well, the
Yeah,
environment is good. It
yeah.
counts for a lot. It counts for a lot.
So, any organizations, employers tuning into this show, I hope you're taking down notes. And anyone who are looking for career development opportunities, I hope you also take down notes like what to look out for in organizations, uh, red flags and green flags that will aid you better in your career development journey based on what Aileen and Shukan had just shared with us, like about the importance of being treated like a human, holistic wellness, uh, no discrimination, and having like a good roadmap and onboarding process. All right. Thank you so much, Irene and Shukan, for taking the questions from us at the inner link so far. Uh, we Now let's go to the before we end today's YouTube live. We have 11 more minutes. Before that, let's look at the some Q and A's we have in some questions we have in the question box. Elia just asked any word of advice for someone just starting out their career. I think this Aileen and Shuka, you've covered this a lot, like extensively in the early part of our talk. Maybe we could have like a recap, like bullet points, three points. What can we? What are advice that you can for someone just starting out their career?
Hmm. Keep
Mm,
an open mind.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think maybe know your job, know the market
mm,
that you're going into, right? And basically, I would say don't form any expectations before you've
mm,
experienced it.
mm. Yes. I would say I like be open. That is really important for a new starter. Then try to experience as much as possible to get to know the whole industry because that's kind of the things will be valuable surprisingly in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Then another thing I would say is for my boss lah. He always he is a good point of view. He said that fresh grade should always prioritize to building up your portfolios.
Hmm.
Then from there you can build out a lot of things. You can show your capabilities whereby you can show that I am good in this, I can do this, and also if I want to change, I am able to change to other things because I have the abilities to work in this way.
Hmm.
So showing that it will help you a lot in, let's say you want to change a career or you want to change a job or you want to change a company. This will definitely help you a lot. But if let's say you have different kind of the internal or external factors that hold you back, always be aware of yourself to know
Hmm.
where your limitations and to be aware where you are, how do you feel, what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with Shukan, especially on that last part. It's basically if you find something that maybe comes on, okay, moving into boundaries, right? If it's going to hit a hard line boundary and you find that you're really extremely uncomfortable, it's going to cross something that you strongly feel, you know, that you cannot do, then, try to discuss with your superior or whoever is offering you this position or this job. Talk to them about it, at least put it out there so that it's known that this thing may affect you. It could be something that affects you physically or mentally. It could be something that may trigger or may bring up maybe something that makes you unhappy, uncomfortable, or traumatic in that sense. I try to not to use that word because it's quite strong, but basically which brings up bad experiences which may affect your work. Uh, do please bring that up. Don't keep silent about it, because it
Mm.
will usually bite you back later on, and it's a bit late for regrets after that.
All right. Um, Thank you, Aileen and Shukan, for taking that question, and thank you, Alia, for asking that question. I hope it helps give insight also to other viewers who are watching this. Last question from the comments box is from Joey. Uh, Joey asked, we talked about knowing the limitations. I think this ties into what earlier on Eileen was talking about, knowing your limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you know if you are limited by your neurodivergence or if you are just lazy? So how do you
uh
know it's a personal character thing, and how do you know it's like a
so Jess, do
disorder?
you think you're better equipped to answer this question?
Um,
Okay, just let me put this out there. One of the things I think, because when we talk about neurodivergency and we talk about being lazy, right? One of the
mm,
things you would look for is the frequency of the occurrence. Um, when you're lazy, you're kind of like, you work every day. Then suddenly one day you're just kind of like, I feel so lazy. I don't want to do this today. That is kind of lazy, or it's being lethargic. You may be tired. You may just, your brain may just be telling you to take a break. But I think in terms of like indications of maybe neurodivergency, it could be that it happens all the time. That means every time you do this, you hit that same symptoms, you hit that same block. And then you suddenly realize, like, why is it every time I do this, this happens? Every time I'm thinking about this happens. And it's something that is like a recurring thing. If you do find that, it's recurring often enough that you start to wonder about it, then plugging, but by all means, please come in for a counseling session. One, because it may not be neurodivergency, but there may be an underlying cause that is causing you to kind of try to avoid something. So it may not be neurodivergence, but it could be some other factor that is affecting you as well. Unfortunately, there is no way to know unless you really take the time to sit and dig into it. And that's normally where counseling comes in, because we sit with you and we talk with you, and you get to bounce off us like what you're feeling, what's happening, give you a perspective maybe outside of your own, so that it's easier for you to look at it in an objective way.
mm, thank you, Eileen, for answering the question. Uh, yeah, is I agree that counseling or seeking help really helps when you want to find out like whether it's being neurodivergent or you are just stressed or exhausted, which counseling also benefits. Coming in for counseling is not just for people who are neurodivergent or have like disordered issues. Even if you're just feeling stressed and exhausted or lethargic, it's helpful to come in, bounce off, like I said, bounce off your ideas and explore what are your limitations. Yay, I'm glad I helped you, Julie. Thanks for staying till the end. And so yeah, thank you everyone for watching this YouTube live, and thank you Eileen and Shukan for being on the talk with us. Uh, before we end this YouTube talk, just uh, I would like to plug in that today at the Innerling Center, we there's right now, it's happening at the same time is also the HIV testing at the Innerling Center by PT Foundation. It's today. It started at the same time as this YouTube live, so it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you need to look for support or get testing done, don't be afraid. Please look for us at the Innerling Center together with PT Foundation. Um, also, I also want to say that we have our podcast, the Innerling podcast called Today I Learned. Today I Learned PIL, the Innerling PIL. Wow. So check out our podcast about boundaries. Aileen and Shuka mentioned earlier a lot about how important it is to communicate boundaries and know your values, know your boundaries when you are seeking for career opportunities or navigating your way in the career world. So check out our podcast about boundaries. The recent one is about friendship boundaries, but it's I think it's applicable to any interpersonal relationship settings, including friendship boundaries with colleagues at work, for example. So check out our podcast Today I Learned with TIL on Spotify and YouTube. And Aileen is also one of our guests for the podcast. Which episode she's in. If you like what she has shared with us today, please like and subscribe to our Spotify and YouTube podcast. And or if you have any further questions, like today's has been so interesting and very insightful. I mean, it's extended from 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. But if you would like to hear more from Eileen, you can also book a counseling session. Eileen, if you're figuring out where you are in terms of finding on your career development journey, like where you are, or you want some guidance or someone to like a friend, or not just a counselor, but maybe someone to a professional insight. So yeah, you can book a counseling session with Eileen at the Inner Link too. Please go find our website link out to for the appointment booking link on our Instagram at the Inner Link is in the bio. If you want more insights about what to look for when you're job seeking, you can also follow Shukan at Recruiter Insights, Recruiter that's at Recruiter_Insights on Instagram, and follow them on the podcast too. So that is thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for the comments in the section also. uh I hope you all enjoyed today's talk, and please follow us on Instagram, the Inner Link, to stay tuned for upcoming itinerary for December events.
Right. Thanks, Jess, for having
Thanks
us
for
and for
having
being such a
me.
great mod.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you both too for joining us today. We will now go. I think after this, we'll all go back to staying glued to our phone, following news. Okay.
Bye.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye. Have a
Bye. Have a good Sunday.